All right, guys, welcome back to some more MLB United Innings. I'm your host, JayFish, and I'm joined by Corbin Burns today. How are we doing?
Good, good. Nice to meet you. Glad to talk to you guys, and looking forward to talking some baseball.
So, you played golf when you were younger, and it came down to baseball and golf. Lots of the guys I've interviewed, they've just picked it up since they've gotten into baseball. They've had downtime. When did you start playing golf, and what made you think that you might be able to go golf or baseball?
Yes, I played. I remember seeing pictures of when I was young, holding a golf club at 2 or 3 years old. So I know I've played golf and baseball probably the longest my entire life. I grew up playing in junior tour tournaments growing up. Obviously, paired that with baseball tournaments on the weekends. So I was always active, playing as many sports as I could. But I was obviously the best at both baseball and golf. I had offers to go play college golf, so that was kind of the tough point for me. Is I knew I had baseball scholarships and I had a couple of golf scholarships as well. So for me, it was like, do I have a chance of playing baseball? Do I have a chance of playing golf professionally? Also, use these scholarships to get a good degree, and if neither one of them worked out, I could join the real world and have a nice job and have a good degree. Um, Ultimately, I chose baseball. My brother's 2 years younger than me. He chose the golf route, so we kind of went opposite ways. But he's done well. He's been successful as well. But for me, baseball is the right route, and like I say, it's hard to argue the decision I made because I'm at this point. But who knows what I could have done with some golf.
I must say it's hard to argue that when you got the Cy Young Award hanging up behind you.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one to argue.
And so then going on to college, I believe you went to St. Mary's, right?
Yep.
Were you getting looked by any MLB teams before you decided to go to St. Mary's, or were you more of a late developer and then they started looking at you based off your college?
Yeah, definitely a developer. So I didn't have, gosh, I don't even know who the scouts were in my area growing up in high school. Never saw any of them at high school games. Didn't see a scout in college till probably my sophomore year that was actually looking at me. So I was definitely a late bloomer. Grew a lot in college, got a lot stronger in college. That's kind of when I kind of came onto the map a little bit. But yeah, so a lot different route than what guys are now. A lot of guys are throwing 100 in high school and on the map before they even go to college. And that was definitely not me. I was an undersized high schooler that was lucky to throw 85 on the mound. So definitely did not have a place in professional baseball coming in.
Well, then in 2016, you got drafted by the Brewers in the fourth round. What was that day like for you? Like going into college, you probably didn't know for sure if you're going to be playing Major League Baseball. So you may have had a backup plan and stuff. What was that day like for you, knowing that you didn't know what was going to happen with
Yes, I mean, obviously, it's you hear the cliche from everyone. It's a dream come true, and it really was. Growing up, I always wanted to play professional baseball, play something professionally, whether it was golf. And so when the scouts started to come around, my sophomore/junior year of college, and it became a reality, and starting talking to these guys and knowing that I was going to be a pretty high round draft pick, that hey, I was going to have a tough decision on my hands because I went to St. Mary's to get a degree. I was studying health science. So I was going to go into kinesiology, some sort of athletic training, something in that route. So for me, I would have been 1 year away from graduating. Was close to getting my degree. So for me, it was going to be a tough decision depending on what round I was in. If it was something I was going to pursue, or turn it down and go back to college, finish my degree, and then maybe try to play minor league baseball after that. So when the Brewers drafted me and we started talking about it, obviously they have your signing bonus and that kind of stuff. It was, for me, it became a pretty easy decision once you see, hey, your name's selected in the fourth round of the Milwaukee Brewers. It's like, okay, I'm going to go. Like, I'm ready. Let's go play. And I remember sitting down with my dad and being like, hey, is this something that I think that I can do? Do I have a chance of making the big leagues, or is this going to be 3 or 4 years in the minor leagues? You fizzle out, then you got to go back and finish your degree, and you're getting into the workforce at 27, 28 behind everyone else in the real world. So that's kind of when it hit me a little bit more like, okay, like this is a big decision. This is something that could be life changing. And ultimately made the decision to sign with the Brewers and play professional baseball. And lucky enough, just over 2 years later, I debuted in the big leagues, and haven't looked back since.
let's jump to the debut. What was that first time like, going in a big league stadium, going on the mound, pitching for the first time?
It was nerve wracking. I remember getting the call in AAA. It was on it was on a Saturday before the Saturday game. I got told I was going to the big leagues, and so packed up all my gear. Got to Milwaukee. When I was told that I was getting called up, I was told I wasn't going to be active on Sunday because it was a day game. I wasn't going to make it in time. I'll be active on the next, on the road trip Monday, wherever we were going. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Like, great. I can go up and hang out and see the city for a day, and then go on the road and join the team. I think it was Miami is where I ended up debuting in the first road trip. So get there Sunday at I landed in Chicago actually about 11 o'clock, and then had to get a car over to the stadium. So got over to the stadium at 12:45, maybe 10 minutes before the game starts. And I walk in, and counsel's like, hey, you're active. Go get dressed, grab some food, and go get dressed. I was like, holy moly. I'm not ready for this. I wasn't prepared. I was getting off the plane thinking I was going to go sit in the clubhouse that day and watch a baseball game and then be active the next day. But no, so I, threw some food down, rushed, got ready, played catch in the bullpen. And then, Counts, I think, kind of knew that I was kind of rushing and wasn't ready. So I think there was an opportunity for me to get in that game. I think we were up by 5 or 6 runs, but they had arrested bullpen, so we didn't use me. And then I sat in the bullpen for another 2 days. So I sat in the bullpen Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, finally debuted on the following Wednesday. So I'd been in the big leagues for 3 days already. Got in the game. I remember my first pitch went to the backstop, barely nicked off, the catcher's glove. Ended up having a clean inning. And when I came in, I thought, hey, I got my 1 inning. I'm done. It was the 8th inning. We were up 3-1 or something. So I figured, okay, we got Knebel out in the bullpen. He's going to come in, get the save. Well, we ended up scoring 3 runs in that inning. So I said, hey, you're going back out. I was like, oh, okay. Went out, got 3 more outs. So I made my big league debut. I got my first save, which I don't think it had been done in a while for the Brewers. So they were making a big deal out of it. And then obviously you get all the beer showers and stuff after for celebrating, and that's really was the start of my year in 18. And I had an unbelievable year out of the bullpen in 18. And we took it that year all the way to Game 7 of the NLCS.
And so in 2018, you came in, did relief pitching, and then 2019, you started to get some starts and then struggled a little bit. What was that outlook like when you got called up? Did you know you were going to be starting in 2019 and just ease in with the relief pitcher, or how did that all go and work out?
Yeah, so after the season in 18, I was told to prepare to be a starting pitcher for 19. That's what I'd done my whole college career, minor league career. We had some guys that I think were free agents, and so you had myself, Freddie Peralta, and Brandon Woodruff, who all were young guys that we were all going to start in the rotation the next year. And really only, I think Woody had a good year. Freddie kind of had a tough year. I had a horrible year. So it didn't work out in 19 for all of us. But yeah, that's kind of when I learned that, coming out of the bullpen, I was just basically like, hey, I'm going to throw the fastball as hard as I can. I'm going to throw a slider every now and then. And I got outs and didn't have to face guys more than once. And so 19 is really when I learned how to pitch, knowing that, hey, to be a starter, to face a lineup 3-4 times, you have to have more pitches. You got to be able to set hitters up. You got to, remember how you got the guy out before, because you can't do it again. So that was a year for me. It was tough because obviously I was learning a lot as I was going. I wanted to be in the big leagues. I wanted to be in the rotation, and I just struggled. And so I was up and down that year between the big leagues and between AAA, between starting, relieving. So I was doing all over the place, doing everything. And so finally, when that year ended, I was like, okay, I got to take a step back, learn from the season. I know I want to start. Relieving was fun, but for me, I know my career is as a starter. So made a point to train in the spring training facility here in Arizona all off season, working with the coaches. Really put a ton of time in to be a starter full go in 2020, and then obviously COVID happened. But I think COVID was really one of the better things for me. It allowed me to get a bunch of extra work in. Gave us a couple extra roster spots that year, so I was able to stay on the team as a 6th starter. And that's kind of where my career took off from there. Just getting that chance to be a starter, learned so much from 2019 that I still obviously take with me today. But that was definitely a tough year. But I learned a lot about myself and a lot about the game that year.
But so yeah, so 19 struggled, 20 it seems like you got that confidence, and then 21 was your year. Like, I guess try and wrap up that year and just explain what that all was like and then the development and stuff. Because, like you said, 2020 boosted it, but how did you continue to develop off of that and then have the year you had?
Yeah, so 2021 was kind of when I really figured out what I was doing on the mound. 18, I came up. I was able to get big league hitters out. 19, I couldn't get anyone out. 20, I started to really, realize that, hey, I've got a chance to do some things here. And 21 is kind of where I put it all together. That's where the cutter really developed. I learned how to kind of sequence pitches. I learned how to, tunnel different pitches off each other. I was also still, even though I'd been in the league for 3 years, I was still relatively new to starting pitching. Only having 4 starts in 19, like six or 7 starts in 2020, I was still to the league. I was still a new starting pitcher. So the not having in-depth scouting reports on me, I was able to kind of take advantage of. But in general, it was start to start, consistent. Going 5 or 6 innings. We were on restrictions that year because of the COVID year, as far as innings go. So they weren't stretching us out super long into games. We had a 6-man rotation, so it was still some adjusting going on. But for me, it was one of those things. I hit the ground running in spring training of that year. Found the feel for the cutter, started to develop everything else around it. That's kind of set me up to really how I still pitch now. Obviously, still use a lot of the cutter, just kind of tweaking stuff here and there a little bit. But that's kind of where I was able to have the right pitch sequencing, the right pitch mix to get both right-handed and left-handed hitters out.
And then obviously, that year you win the Cy Young. At what point that year did you think, like, I can actually do this? Like, I have a shot at actually finishing the season strong in getting the Cy Young?
Probably wasn't until like mid-September. It's tough to stay away from the TV in the clubhouse and hear about it all the time on the social media and all the news outlets and MLB Network. Everyone's grabbing it. So at that point, I couldn't escape it. I did a pretty good job most of the year of keeping my head down, doing my work, getting after it. But as soon as the media grabs a hold of it and starts asking a million questions about it, it's tough to stay away from it. So for me, it was one of those things I tried to keep it on the back of my mind. Go out and get my work in, keep doing what I was doing on the mound. And if I end up winning at the end of the year, great. It would just have to, let things take care of itself. But I think it was probably mid-September. And then I had one really bad start, I think, right at the end of the year. That I was like, oh, I just sucked myself. I didn't have the innings some of the other guys had. As far as what I was doing in those innings was I think far better than what everyone was doing, but I didn't have the innings. I had one bad start, like my second to last start or third to last start wasn't very good. So I was like, that's it. I had to be perfect the rest of the year. And so that was kind of the point that I stopped thinking about it. And then I think I had 2 good starts to finish the season. I was like, okay, well, maybe I still got a chance. And then, gosh, that's the longest. I think it was 3 weeks after the season waiting for them to announce, finalists, and then now 2 wins. Like that was the longest 3 weeks of my life, knowing that, hey, I was going to be a finalist. Am I going to win this thing? Am I not? And then that day to be announced that I had won it was special. It's something that I had never dreamed of being at this point in my career. I know I want to play in the big leagues. I wanted to play as long as I could in the big leagues. I wanted to make a living out of it, be able to provide for my family, but never did I think I was going to be the level where I could win a Cy Young and be a contender in the Cy Young year in and year out. So it's been special, and a lot of that has to do with that year in 2021.
Right, and so we've been talking about your 21 season. Obviously, that was your best season that you just talked about. And so this is a card in the game of MLB Innings. It's a prime card, and pretty much players get this card for like their best year in the career. And obviously, if a player hasn't been like top of the line, they're not going to get a prime card. But those are what your stats are looking like. That's one of the best prime cards you can get in the game. What are your thoughts on the picture they chose for this one? Do you like this in-action shot? Like these types of cards, you get special pictures. It's not just your
yeah, everyone loves the pictures where the hair's flown in the wind. So yeah, it's a good look, good side profile. That was definitely when the hair was a lot better. Even last year when I had the hair long, I don't think it looked near as good as when it did there in 21.
And so you bring up the hair. I got to ask you, when you came into the league, you had shorter hair and then you started to grow it out. What led you to grow out your hair? Had you ever grown it out before, or?
Yeah, so I had grown it out pretty long. My I think my sophomore year in college was the last time that I had it long. It was never that long. Um, but then really I let it go, and during COVID, just like I feel like 95% of people in the country did that year. I let it grow really long. I got used to it. It kind of when you're growing out your hair, you kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, I need to cut it or I need to let it grow another inch. And since it was COVID and a lot of things were shut down, I just let it grow, and it got so long that going into 21, I left it. And myself and Hader that year both had really long hair, and so they were the team loved doing different shirts and different stuff with me and him having the long hair and having the success we were having and having the years we were having. That it was a great marketing deal. It was great for the media, and for us, it was just we were just being lazy and letting our hair grow long and not getting a haircut. So that's probably the longest it's ever been. It was longer again this year, but wasn't quite as long, and I don't think it was quite as full. I think the older I get, the thinner it gets, and probably the worse it's going to look if I keep growing it out long.
So coming into this, I was wondering if it was COVID or if Josh Hader had an influence on you at all, because I know he's had the flow. So I'm like, was it Hader trying to get him to, or if he just let it grow out?
No, I think it was more just letting it grow because of COVID, but then also he had it as well. So I was like, well, I can at least join him on the team as a guy with long hair, and we both have success. And I actually got a picture hanging up on my wall over here of when we had our no hitter together, and we both have long hair, and we look like brothers out there. So it was good.
Okay, and so now we have some other types of cards. We just talked about the prime, but the other cards you see that have your signature on them are called signature cards. Players get them when they have good or exceptional years. You've got one for 20, 21, and 22. And then down at the right, you have your 23 card from this past season, but you didn't get a signature card for this season. And granted, the stats weren't the same, but you still had a great year. Do you feel like you shouldn't have gotten? Do you feel like you should have gotten a signature card for this?
Yeah, so I get a lot of questions about this season. Obviously stats wise, it wasn't as good, but personally, when I'm looking at, I really look at 21, 22, and 23 because those are obviously my full seasons. 20, the COVID year, you don't have the innings, but for me, the work that I put in 22 and 23 for me almost it means more than what it did in 21. Just because 2022 we threw over 200 innings. Last year we were right at 200 innings again. So for me, my thing when I'm preparing for a season, when I'm going through a season, for me it's always health. So for me to be healthy, to make 32, 33 starts, to throw right around 200 innings every year, for me, to me that's a valuable pitcher. That's someone that you can rely on to go out there every 5 days. You know they're going to eat innings, and then to do it at the level that I've done for those 3 years, I think is pretty special. So stats didn't look quite as good last year, but I mean for the rest of my career, I'm going to get compared to my 2021 season. So if 2023 stats are the worst on my baseball card, then I think I'm going to be all right.
I have 5 questions for you on different topics. Whatever first comes to mind, just shout it out for me, okay?
All right.
All right, so first question is, what is your dream car?
Dream car. Oof, I don't even know. I'm not a big car guy, but growing up, I always loved kind of the older Dodge Challengers. I drove a Dodge Challenger in college, but it was one of the new ones. So for me, looking at the late '60s, early '70s, those Dodge Challengers, those are pretty sweet.
And the next one is, if you could bring 3 things with you in a post-apocalyptic situation, what would you bring?
Oof.
And
Well,
you can take a little
first,
time on this.
I would say first is going to be my family. I think if I had just upped and left them, I don't think my wife would be very happy with me. So I'll bring the family around. Um, Next would probably be the bass boat. I love fishing in the off season. That's kind of my getaway. So if I'm getting we're post apocalyptic, I can at least go fish and catch some food for the family. So I'll take the bass boat. And then, that's a good one. Probably the baseball glove or baseball, something to keep my mind occupied since there's not going to be too much to do.
Now, most players we've interviewed do choose like a weapon. So, like, let's say like there's like zombies and stuff. Would you have a certain weapon in mind, or are you just like it happens, it happens?
Well, if I could pick up my whole safe that's sitting here, I would take that with me, and I think I'd be just fine. But yeah, maybe some sort of handgun if I had to pick one.
And the next one is if you could only eat one meal the rest of your life, what would it be?
One meal the rest of my life. I'm a big steak and potatoes guy, so it's going to be some sort of fillet, some sort of ribeye, a baked potato, some sort of bread. I mean, I'm a big steak, potato, carb guy, so that's a pretty easy. You can live off that for a long, long time.
I'm with you on that. I'm literally heading to Longhorn for dinner tonight.
There you go.
8-ounce sirloin, sweet potato with cinnamon sugar and butter. I'm good.
Yep. Can't go wrong with
And
that.
then no. Next question is: are you a console or a PC guy?
So when I was always a console. I don't play video games anymore just because I'm busy chasing around my son in the off season. But I grew up with Xbox. I had PS4 last, but now since the last couple of years since my son's been born, I haven't been playing too many video games.
Now, when you did play video games, what types of games were you playing? Sports, shooters?
Yeah, growing up was a lot of shooters, a lot of Call of Duty, and then a lot of MLB The Show, a lot of the NFL games. Was big into NHL, played a lot of NHL, and then before my son was born, was the big Fortnite craze. It was huge in the clubhouses as well, so I was definitely in on the Fortnite. That's probably really the last video games I've played was when Fortnite was getting big and going nuts and playing with teammates on the road. And, they had a lot of veteran guys that were even felt comfortable enough to play it in the clubhouse, before the game starts. So, I was on Fortnite for a little while, but, that's actually probably the last video game that I've actually played.
I was gonna ask if you got the Fortnite in before that video game career came to an end.
Yeah, it was there. It was big. I think it was big all across baseball. It was big with the Brewers. I know. We had 9 or 10 guys that were playing. They had buddies that were on other teams that were playing. So Fortnite was definitely big across MLB. Probably, that was like 18 and 19 was really big.
It was big everywhere. I interviewed Gavin Williams. He's a pitcher for the Guardians.
Okay.
He's still playing Fortnite. That's actually the only game he's played. He started playing video games a couple of years ago. That's all that he plays. So
That's funny.
And then you mentioned NHL. Did you ever play any golf video games growing up too? Because I know you loved playing golf.
Yeah, I did. I did play a lot of the Tiger Woods games. For me, they were a lot better. 10 or 12 years ago. I haven't played any of the recent golf games. I know they came up with some new PGA Tour games, but I definitely played a lot of the Tiger Woods golf when I was younger. And then that was probably before high school. And then high school is when I think Call of Duty and all those big shooter games kind of took off. So I was definitely more onto those, but definitely played a lot of the golf games when I was younger.
Yeah, because you can play it on Xbox with a controller. But did you ever get to play the Tiger Woods golf game on the Wii? Because it was kind of more of like a realistic type swing because you could use the remote like that.
Yeah, we never had the Wii, so I had friends that had it. So I played it, a little bit when I would go over to their house. But we never had the Wii, so it was more just the Xbox on everything was on the controller. But yeah, that definitely would have been probably a hit in the house if we did have that.
Yeah, we had a Wii, and that was my brother's go-to, and it was so cool. Like playing it on a controller is completely different than actually like doing a swing on the Wii.
Yeah.
And then the last question we have for the rapid fire questions is: if you weren't a professional baseball player, what would you be doing right now?
If it wasn't professional baseball, hopefully professional golf. That was kind of what I felt was kind of the next route I would have gone. had I not chosen baseball. If I was completely out of sports, probably in some sort of kinesiology field, athletic training, somewhere in there. I was always interested in kind of how the body worked, different parts of the body. Whether it was recovery, still big on recovery now, obviously, in being a pitcher, but I was definitely interested in learning about the human body and some of the ways that it worked. So definitely would have probably been somewhere along that route.
And I must say, you almost could have been a pro golfer, and you're a pro baseball player, so you have some competitiveness. Are you as competitive in that pro-am as you were back in the day golfing beforehand, or do you tone it down a little bit?
Probably not quite as competitive as I was when I was playing golf, more seriously. I'm not as good now as I was then. So for me, it's obviously it's tough to not get frustrated, go out there knowing that I can play better, but to go out and enjoy it. And you get to see firsthand some of the best golfers in the world, right there next to you playing. I've actually had some good conversation with guys. Still friends with some of the guys that I play with in those pro-ams. So get to kind of check in with them throughout their season, cross paths with them every now and then, and go out and play some extra golf with them. But it's a cool event to kind of cross worlds with baseball and golf, and a lot of the golf guys are just as interested in baseball as the baseball guys are in golf. So it's pretty cool just to talk with those guys and see how they compete at that level and their preparation, and how much they're traveling. It seems like we travel a lot, but those guys are traveling almost just as much. They just get to stay in one spot for 6 days versus being one spot for 3 and another spot for 3. So it's crazy how similar the worlds are. They're just in a lot more beautiful parts of the country, or Hawaii or wherever they're going to play, versus being in some of the cities in a baseball stadium. They're out on 18-hole beautiful golf courses on the ocean, or in the trees or somewhere. So it's pretty cool, but it's cool to get to talk to those guys.
So I think I saw on your social media that this past Halloween, you guys dressed up as Chick-fil-A workers with your son being a cow. How did that come about?
That was mostly my wife's doing. So my son, we were at the stage where he was huge into farm animals, and so he had this big thing of farm animals in the barn, and he loved the cow more than any of them. So he'd always walk around carrying the cow and mooing. And so when Halloween time came around, my wife was just kind of scrolling through something. She says, "Oh, we could be Chick-fil-A workers because Carter can be the cow, and we could dress up as Chick-fil-A workers." And so it was perfect. So my wife's okay. Well, we have the haters, we have the Williams coming over, we have some friends coming over. What are we going to do for dinner? I said, well, for Chick-fil-A workers, we got to order Chick-fil-A. So we catered in Chick-fil-A for everyone that came over, and then we were the Chick-fil-A workers with Carter, our son, being the Chick-fil-A cow. So it worked out perfectly.
I was wondering. I was like, are they just super big on Chick-fil-A, or did he have anything to play into it, or?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun little party.
All right, and that's pretty much all the time we have today, Corbin. We appreciate you having us on. Do you have anything you want to say before we head out?
No, thanks. Appreciate you having me on. Was glad to talk to you a little bit, talk about both the games, talk about baseball a little bit. So I enjoyed it.
Appreciate you coming on. Best of luck to you next season, and we'll see you guys next time.